You guys got me. We'll talk about bases. So step 1, gluing this dum-dum on his base. Brown, red. Oh, that way. That way. Look at that. There we go. We'll get this. We'll get this. Don't worry. Boop, 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 and these two. This one's actually all fucked up. All right, bunch of minis. That's a good question here. How do you choose the best color for bases? And I mean that's a cool thing. I'll link to in the one because we'll make a video out of this because it's a good question. And there's gonna be a link to the blog article about this because it's a lengthy subject. There's a lot of guesswork kind of, but the goal is to find like a something simple and kind of take out the guesswork. But there's a lot of like trial and error, right? So and I'm sure a lot of what I'm gonna explain has like actual names, but I don't know them. I just know it works because I tried like a million times, like literally machine learning. Oh, let's make this base. Does not work. Let's try another color. So in terms of color, there's really two sides that you can take to make a cool ass base. The first one should showcase the miniature, and the second one should showcase the base itself. What does that mean? Well, if you want to showcase the miniature, it's kind of a very bland base, a base that does not really attract too much. And this is really great on miniatures that really stand out. This is a good example. This guy right here is a really good example of this. Like the miniature, like the Space Marine, it does not need like a lot of help to stand out. It is bright red, bright white, and a yellow helmet. Like this guy stands out. So it does not need like a colorful base, because if everything is like super shiny and super out there, nothing really is, right? Like nothing stands out on the Marine. So you have a very bland and dark base. It goes a little bit with the colors on there. Like there's a couple of like black thingies and the black and gray base. But overall, we let kind of the miniature shine in the scheme, the miniature, like the color scheme, shine and do its thing, right? Like it's a big, bright, bold. You know what else is bright and bold? Orange Votan. That's right, that guy. This guy needs no help. He's like bright and orange. Like you don't need to showcase anything. You just like, Jesus Christ. It's like this guy is like a traffic cone, you know? He's right there on top of the 305, like just on the side. It looks like a Montreal at night. Okay, all them little construction cones. So you don't need like crazy. Even this one I tried to do something, it failed. It's just like a really bland gray base. It showcases the miniature, and then when you have minis that are maybe a little bit darker, a little bit more drab and less interesting, we'll put it that way, then you need something to kind of stand them out a little bit. For example, this big guy. So this guy here, that's not in focus, is really, you know, it's a dark little model. So we want the base to kind of stand out, to have something interesting about it. So a bright base, more interesting in a darker scheme because it adds a little bit of oomph. Same thing for this Billy the Necron over here. You know, we want something that, well, this one is really... So we have a Space Wolf that's really nothing impressive. This is the 30-minute Space Wolf, but our base is bright orange, and orange clashes a lot with blue. So we have like a big bold base. So having a bold base kind of empowers we'll say a shitty paint job or a quick paint. Let's use quick. Quick has a nicer ring than shitty paint job. It's not shitty. It's quick. So having a super bright base, like if your minis are like speed painted and they're like really, like this is very down to earth, right? Like this is one yellow, one red, one green, one silver, and then a bunch of different shades. It's speed painted. It's fine, but it needs a little oomph, and the base is a really easy place to add that oomph. So you pick like bright colors that will clash and contrast with your miniature. And exactly, and the goal is that all of these guys here, now you're watching one of them, but the goal is you have an army. So the most important thing is pick something that fits with your army and stick to it. Because if you have, like, the Tau here are a really good example of like all of these like little Tau models are better painted than our little Space Wolf guy that was just there. But if we play an army like this of like multicolored and different bases, it will suck. So getting the bases like uniform and like kind of just okay, but uniform and like detailed is kind of the best way to go. And then you have to kind of choose. Do you want to showcase the mini or showcase or make the mini stand out? And that is really question one. Does your mini stand out on its own? Like, is it like a super bright, shiny, thing? And white is a really good example of like this. This mini is like white. It does not need like a lot of help. Hey, just like real life. So this model is like it's super white, so it stands out like on its own. It does not need like a lot of help from the base. Whereas something a little bit darker and more, meh, it needs something to make it stand out. Like this guy on a lava base. Oh, mama, that would be sweet. So that's the first kind of thing. The second thing is whenever you do bases, try to do 3 different textures or colors. Now, a lot of these guys, they're not like that. The better ones, like this one somewhat, and this one kind of do. All of these bases have at least 3 textures. So this one here is the simpler one. It's got like a different little texture on the base because it's like a detailed base, and it's got multiple colors on it. Like it's not just gray, right? This one kind of boring. One texture, sand, and it's gray. This one here, detailed base and like some brown into the gray. Interesting. This one kind of same thing. This one here, detailed base. We added a little rock on it. No, still not that impressive. Add a little rock on it, and then we have the little tuft of grass here. And the tuft of grass again really shines. This is a kind of darker red mini. Want something that pops, bright green, and then this kind of fits with the rest of the miniature. So 2, we're getting there. Now we're talking 3. This is my favorite set of bases of all. Like this type of base here, I did that like on like all my armies for like 2 years straight, and then I moved away from it. But this base here works with everything. If you can only do one, this color here, dark brown, a rock, and then some grass. 3 different textures on the base. Thank you. Goodbye. This will work on anything and everything. Everything. And then this guy, kind of the same thing. This one here, up to 4. So we got like a base, a rock, snow, and a little tuft of grass over there. So this is really kind of the next level, if you will. And this mini is also kind of next level. This is one of the better paint, and it's also broken. But so this miniature here again. So 2, 1, not great. 2, passable. I definitely broke this guy. 3, 4. So 2, 3, you're out there. 4, pushing it. You're doing the extra work. And then the second part of this is you should do all of them together. And this is the most important thing, as KR points out in chat as well. Write it down. Well, do like all of them together. Like if we do an army, don't do 1 unit and the basis for 1 unit. Do like, figure out like your 2,000 points and then do extras of all of the size that you're using and then do all of them at once. That, first of all, it speeds up the process. Right. This is so important. I'm going to use my big face camera. That's right. Big face. Because it's important. So you do all of them at once, right? So when you've chosen like your go-to technique or your go-to colors, and we'll talk about colors in a second here. But once you've figured out, how you want to do them, you sit down and then you do all of them. How many? All of them. Okay? Because it's not a fun process, but also you speed things up immensely. Right, like you look at something like this, but you look at like one of like the what's it called, that guy, the Iron Hands guy with the little brown base, like beige, and then you line up like 100 of them. You sit down, you put on a movie, and then you put glue and you dip it in sand and you put it on the side, and then you put glue and then you dip it in sand and you put it on the side, and you glue and you do that for your entire army. It does not take any skill, but it does take time. You need to like kind of set up, and then you. Like repetition, it goes kind of fast, and if you have to, like, you stop thinking about it at some point. So you do that, and then the painting, same thing. Because you're doing like 1,000,000, well, you can knock out, like you have a spray can of like desert yellow over there, or leather brown. Leather brown is probably my favorite of the shaker cans to do bases. You get stuff like this one here, the Tau, the red Tau with the desert-ish base. Leather brown, the crap out of all them bases, and then you save like so much time, dude. Like, it's not even fair. And then all of your bases are kind of done. And then once you have like all the bases, then you paint your guys and then you put them on the little bases that's already done, and then you've already saved a bunch of time. So you do all of them. And then you write down somewhere. Like I'm a kind of an old school that way. I got a little an actual notebook, and I write every time I do an army now, I write it down. Whatever it is that I do, I write it down. This has helped me a lot with, like, I struggled with, I had a good, back in the day, I had a good customer called Guillaume, and Guillaume got me to paint like a bunch of armies, but he did them in batches, and I was not as well set up as I am now, and I was still learning the stuff. And all of his batch, like, we did Blood Angel, and there's probably like 4,000 points of Blood Angel, probably more, but they were painted into 3 batches, and they all looked different. And just because every time I did them, I didn't remember, and I never wrote down what I did. So write down the colors, especially the bases. Having like uniform bases across your army beats better bases, but all different. And that's incredible. And it's also really great with allies. Like, now that you can like play allies, if like for example, like if your Eldar and your Dark Eldar have the same bases, they look like they're in the same army. If your Eldar and your Dark Eldar are not on the same bases, they look kind of odd. Even if both armies are better painted, if they're not in the same armies, better painted, but they look like two mashed together. Like, everybody's seen this, right, at your game store. Like, the guy he's bought his army secondhand, or he switched halfway through his painting like scheme, and then he's got like mismatched, even if they're like beautiful, the ones that he has, because they're all mismatched. Ugh. So picking one thing and then committing to it is better than trying to improve every time and then ending up with like a million bases of a million different schemes. So now let's talk about the colors just quickly. I'll give you a couple of like combos, because a lot of the colors, they kind of repeat, and that's what I find, like a couple that I like, and then I kind of reuse them and mix them around. So let's look at a couple of those. My favorite color combo of all time is this one here. And this is for the Tau that I showed you guys, this type of rock here. There's an ebook on this. Like, this is, again, I did this style of base on all my minis for like 2 years straight, guaranteed. If you've seen one of my armies from like 2015 or something, and from 2015 to 17, all on these bases. This bases is Rhinox hide, painted or airbrushed, with probably airbrushed usually, and then Steel Legion drab or the Army Painter leather brown dry brushed, and then Skeleton bone or whatever bone color dry brushed very, very lightly. And so this is my favorite like kind of color combo. And then these two are gonna give you this color here. So if you want like a more desert, instead of dry brushing this one, you base coat with this, and then you dry brush with the little desert, and then that changes this here into this here. And obviously the grass is kind of different. Obviously the more you drive. So, and for example, and then, well, we'll talk about that later. So that is really one of my favorite like trio of colors. And then the second one is the gray section. And then gray, you have like, well, obviously you need black in there. Thought I picked it up, but I rarely wash bases. Some of them I do, but I rarely wash bases, and I can talk about that after. Washes are really strong, and they pick up all of the texture in the bases. So, like, depending on what you do, and which one do you prefer of all of them, and I'll do one for sure. I'll do more than one. I don't care. We'll do all of them. All right. So for the brown one, Rhinox hide here is my favorite. And then Steel Legion drab, and this one is the exact same as leather brown. So Steel Legion drab is my favorite because this one is super opaque. This one here is my favorite because it's super opaque, but leather brown comes in a shaker can, so I alternate between the two, but they're practically the same color. So depending on if we do this one, we need a dry brush, I use this one. If we do this one, I want a base coat, I use leather brown because I can spray it with the shaker can. But they're officially the same. And then the last one is, this one is Skeleton Bone Air. That's the first one, but all the bone colors are the same, right? Like Skeleton Bone, the Skeleton Bone not hair, the Ushab T-Bone from Games Workshop, and then the other one, Screaming Skull, I think it's called. So, these are my three favorite for the rocky thing. And then for the grays, you have 3 of them, and this is kind of the best one. So black is like a good, again, the same thing we did with the brown one, you can do the same with gray, where you can start on a black color and then dry brush on top. So black, and then you dry brush with Mechanicus standard gray, and then you dry brush again with Celestra gray. So you get something like this, but you could also start your base coat on something like Mechanicus Standard Gray and then dry brush your Celestra Gray, and that will give you an even lighter, because this one has like a lot of black showing through, right? And then for the Mars colors, my favorite one is Doombull Brown. Doombull Brown, if you've watched this stream, you've seen me use this. This is the best color ever. Doombull Brown does everything. So black, Doombull Brown dry brush, and then Tau Light Ochre dry brush. And this gives us like the little Martian looking color, because it gives you really red earth, right? So I really like this one. It's not as red as the Games Workshop thing, like the texture paint that they have. It's really red. This is more into the brown and orange. I really love it. And then the last thing that's kind of interesting is the rim. And you guys know I love a good rim job. So the rim is kind of interesting, where black is kind of the go-to, okay? The side of the base here. Black, it works all the time. On lighter bases, I like doing my base color on them. I think having the lighter color tones the base down. So again, this one here is a very light base, and I don't want the base to stand out too much. On this model, I want the base to stand out, so I put the rim in black, because then the top really stands out, and you can see, because this is the exact, like the top is the same color. If you don't see the rim thing, exactly the same two colors, and then you can do, and then obviously, and then you have all of these other variations, light gray or dark gray on the side of gray bases, or dark brown on the side of brown bases, and you can get crazy color. I think that kind of like sells out the base thingy. So just a couple of recap. I heard it was good to do a recap in these videos. So just a couple of recap when you're doing bases. One, pick either something that's matching your army and that will showcase the model, or something that will make your models stand out. You go either these strategies and then you commit to it. If you have a model that needs standing out because the paint job is quick or it's drab, you do that. And if your paint job is already super flashy, you pick something that's really more down to earth. So that is tip number one. Tip number two is you do all of your bases and then some more at one time, and you do all of these. You spend, one evening and you do all of them bases, and then when you're done painting your model, you remove it from the little stand-up base and you glue it on your finished base. Or even if you do all the models, you break off all of your models from the bases that they're on. You do the bases separately from the mini, glue them back on. Third thing, do all of your bases the same, even if it's a cheap way or a fast way or whatever, do all of them at the same time. It's the best way. All 100 fast and easy bases are better than 100 bases done differently, each improving from the next one. Guaranteed all the time. And third, the rim of your bases should be black. And this is like the stupid thing, but like taking 10 seconds and doing the rim in black on your bases makes it 10 times better instantly for something that takes 10 seconds. This is no joke. This is like not a joke. And then try to aim for 2 or 3 different textures on each base. 1 is probably not enough, and 4 is kind of maybe pushing it in that it becomes really busy. Yeah, bases, man. We went there.